Hello and welcome to Sleepy Scientist. I'm glad you're here, whether you've had a long day, a busy mind, or you simply love falling asleep to the sound of science. Tonight we float above a silver lake tucked into the mountains of Venezuela, where the sky flickers not once, not twice, but hundreds of times each night, every night. As the warm air rises and the clouds begin to hum, you'll drift through the only place on Earth where lightning never truly rests. You'll hear the soft buzz of energy dancing in the clouds, the silent sparks flickering behind your eyelids, and the ancient rhythm of a storm that has crackled for centuries. The night sky pulses like a living heartbeat, and by the time we've explored its secrets, you might just feel that pulse slowing into your own. If you enjoy these sleepy explorations, I'd be so grateful if you gave the video a little like and tap that subscribe button. It helps more sleepy scientists like you find their way here, and it means I can keep making more of these journeys for you now. Now imagine floating gently above a warm lake as twilight settles in the kind of twilight that blurs the edges of everything. Below the waters of Lake Maracaibo lie quiet and vast, nearly the size of a small sea. It's peaceful for now, but you know it won't last, because this lake has a secret, a restless one. Each night as the sun slips behind the Andes, the sky above Maracaibo flickers to life. Not once, not twice, but up to 280 times every hour. The lightning doesn't come with crashing thunder or violent wind. It appears gently, almost politely. Silvery violet gold, it ripples through the clouds as if the stars themselves are stretching. You don't need to wait for a storm here. The storm is always waiting for you. The phenomenon is called Catatumbo Lightning, and it's been glowing in the same place for hundreds of years. Mariners used to navigate by it, calling it the lighthouse of Catatumbo. Imagine that sailing into a South American bay, guided not by a lighthouse beam, but by nightly lightning so consistent you could set your compass by it. And what makes it even stranger, the storm is almost always silent. You might see over 100 flashes in an hour, but hear no thunder. The sound gets swallowed by distance, carried away over mountains, or absorbed by the thick air. What's left is light, pure pulsing and dreamlike. Have you ever watched lightning without sound? Try to imagine it, a silent flicker in the clouds, distant but near alive, but oddly serene. On average, this place sees around 1.6 million flashes of lightning a year. That's more than 200 flashes per square kilometer, making it the most lightning-active place on the planet. And while most people think of lightning as chaotic, random, dangerous Catatumbo, lightning is surprisingly rhythmic. It arrives just after sunset and lasts for hours. Some nights it pauses, some nights it rages, but it always comes back. So you might wonder what makes this one place so electric. Is it something in the water, in the air, or perhaps the land itself? That's what we'll uncover together. For now, you hover above the lake, the air thick with warmth and mist. The clouds begin to stack on the horizon first, like soft towers, then like anvils made of vapor and breath. You can almost feel the charge building. It's like the sky is holding its breath, and so are you. Then light. A single flash arcs from cloud to cloud. It curls and vanishes, leaving a silver trail behind your eyes. Then another, then another. You're not startled. You're mesmerized. Because this isn't a storm that crashes in. It arrives like a memory, slow, glowing, eternal. And as you drift above Lake Maracaibo, rocked by heat and light and silence, the sky begins to whisper its secrets. One flash at a time, you're still floating above the water, but now twilight has deepened. The sky no longer glows blue, it pulses dimly like a heart under cloth. The lake stretches out below you, like a polished obsidian mirror, catching each flash and returning it in slow ripples. This is Lake Maracaibo, And it is not merely a body of water, it is a stage. Welcome to the lightning capital of the world. This is not poetic exaggeration. Here in this very specific pocket of Venezuela, lightning strikes more than anywhere else on Earth. At its peak, it flashes up to 300 times an hour, nearly 10 times per minute, sometimes for 10 hours straight. And it isn't seasonal. It doesn't arrive with a passing front or an unpredictable storm cell. The Catatumbo Lightning shows up on more than 260 nights every year. What makes this spot so unusual, you start to sense it in the land itself. Lake Maracaibo is not just a lake, it's part of a massive basin nestled between the Andes Mountains to the west, the Merida Range to the south, and lowlands to the north and east. These natural borders act like gentle hands, cradling the warm air and trapping the moisture. Then there's the Catatumbo River, which pours its own warm breath into the lake's southern reaches, carrying even more humidity from the rainforest beyond. All this warm, moist air rises through the day. The lake itself heats up under the tropical sun, and as the air warms, it lifts gently upward, dragging vapor with it. At nightfall, the surrounding mountains cool faster, and the contrast causes a slow collision of breezes. The cooler air descends from the mountains, meets the humid air over the lake, and sparks begin to form. Literally. It's a bit like watching a pot slowly come to boil. You wouldn't notice at first, but then the bubbles start to rise slow and steady, and just like that, towering clouds begin to build above the lake, massive cumulonimbus clouds, each one a skyscraper of vapor. These clouds can rise 10 to 12 kilometers into the sky. Inside them, droplets collide, ice crystals rub against one another, and charges begin to separate. The cloud becomes a kind of natural battery, positive charges near the top, negative near the base, and lightning is the discharge. Have you ever thought about how lightning chooses where to strike? It doesn't always come down from the sky. Often it starts in the middle of the cloud and forks sideways or even reaches back up from the ground. In Lake Maracaibo's sky, the strikes often stay within the clouds, leaping from one electrified region to another, like whispers passed between thunderheads. The whole thing is so consistent, scientists once used it as a calibration point. Before satellite imaging, advanced Catatumbo Lightning was like a natural clock in the sky, something the Earth itself set ticking each night. And it's not just one kind of lightning. Here you'll find in-cloud flashes where the bolt never touches ground, illuminating the entire cloud from within. These are the most common in Maracaibo. The sky flashes white-purple, even pale orange. The bolt zigzags like a sleepy scribble across the sky and fades. Then there are the rare cloud-to-ground strikes, often so fast you only catch the afterglow. They're intense, but still surprisingly quiet. The lake's vastness and the moisture-rich air absorb the thunder like a soft pillow. Ask yourself, what would it feel like to live under this every night, to fall asleep with the ceiling flickering like a candlelit film reel? Some people do. In the villages that hug the lake's edges, lightning isn't something to fear. It's familiar. A nightly lullaby. Children grow up counting flashes instead of sheep. Fishermen head to shore guided by the sky's glow. No need for lanterns, no need for clocks. You might wonder whether this place feels magical or exhausting. The answer is both. To some, it's a divine signal. To others, it's a nightly reminder that the world is still moving, still charging, still alive. And as you watch the sky flicker gently again and again, you begin to realize this isn't just lightning. It's a pulse, a rhythm, a promise that somewhere in the quiet dark, the storm keeps breathing. The flashes ripple across the clouds once more, soft white fingers brushing the ceiling of the world. But now you begin to sense what lies beneath it all. You drift lower, closer to the surface, and it becomes clear the true secret of this never-ending storm isn't just in the sky. It's in the dust, the mud, the grit of the land. It's in the dustiness of earth and the strange talent of some places to stir it just right. Because before you get lightning, you need something to carry the charge. And here in the Lake Maracaibo basin, nature has provided everything required. This is a world built on dust. Tiny particles of dried organic matter, crumbled bits of ancient riverbed, and broken down volcanic stone swirl in the lowland heat. They are fine as powdered sugar and light as breath. You don't see them, not really. But they're always there, suspended in the air, rising with the sun, curling into every gust that moves across the water. Now ask yourself, what exactly is dust? Not the stuff that settles on your bookshelf, but the kind that fuels a storm. On Earth, atmospheric dust is made of everything from pulverized rock to ash, sea salt pollen, and human pollution. But here in the tropics near the equator, soil dust light and fertile and dry is king. This dust plays a vital role in the birth of clouds. Each little particle acts as a condensation nucleus, a tiny platform for water vapor to cling to. Without dust, the sky would struggle to form droplets at all. But when moisture meets one of these specks, it condenses. And when millions of those droplets gather, a cloud is born. Now let's return to the lake. The basin around Lake Maracaibo is shallow and flat. In the dry season, the ground cracks open like parched skin. Wind sweeps across it, lifting fine grains into the atmosphere. The sun bakes the land until the air above it shimmers. And when the temperatures are just right, usually in the late afternoon, the moist air rises, carrying dust along with it. This isn't a violent process. It's more like a breath. The earth inhales sunlight all day, then exhales heat and particles into the cooling sky. And that's when the storm begins to build. The dust helps the water cling together. The water helps build the cloud. The cloud rubs itself raw against the wind, separating charges like silk pulled across your skin. And eventually, quietly, inevitably, the lightning appears. It's as though the earth and sky have made a deal. You send the dust, and I'll send the spark. Even the size of the dust matters. In Maracaibo, much of it measures less than 10 microns across. That's smaller than a single grain of flour. These tiny grains stay suspended, longer, rise higher, and mix more evenly into the forming clouds. It's the perfect storm recipe: warm air, moisture, and just the right amount of powder. But there's another hidden force: static electricity. When the dust particles bump into one another in the rising thermals, they exchange tiny charges. Positive, negative, neutral. It's a swirling ballet of electricity at the atomic level. This dance of particles builds up tension. Invisible fingers of energy stretch across the sky, reaching for balance. And then the clouds answer. Imagine being one of those dust grains so small, so light, carried miles into the sky. You don't know where you'll land. You just ride the heat, feel the air thin around you, watch the world shrink below. And just when everything seems quiet, bam, you've helped summon lightning. It's strange to think something so powerful could begin with something so small. But that's how nature works. Little things matter, especially when there are billions of them carried skyward every day. This dust, this humble floating army of Earth, becomes the invisible skeleton inside every flash of Catatumbo lightning. It holds the memory of ancient ground, dried leaf, volcanic stone, and broken shell. It is the past reborn as energy. And in that way, the storm over Lake Maracaibo isn't just weather. It's a kind of whisper. The land telling the sky, I remember. And the sky answering back, so do I. You follow the dust now, not just up into the clouds, but back along the warm breath that carried it there. That breath has a name, a gentle winding name, Catatumbo. The Catatumbo River winds down from the southwestern mountains, curling lazily through valleys, feeding life into Lake Maracaibo. But what it truly feeds night after night is air, warm, wet, restless air. Picture it by late afternoon, sunlight has soaked into the forested highlands and lowland plains alike. The land exhales heat. The river surface releases moisture. All of this humid rising air funnels slowly toward the lake basin. The Catatumbo River becomes a kind of conveyor belt for energy, ushering warmth and vapor from the jungle to the sky. This isn't a roaring wind. Not at first. It starts as a whisper, a sigh of evaporation. But as the air climbs, cooled by the night and compressed by the geography, it begins to pick up speed. Not hurricane speed, but enough to push the atmosphere into motion. And here's where the setting becomes magical. All around the basin, the Andes and surrounding ridges form natural barriers. The winds from the Caribbean Sea try to sneak in from the north. The descending night air spills down from the mountains to the west. And in the middle, the humid Catatumbo air flows up from the south like a thread through a needle. Where all of these invisible winds meet, they don't cancel each other. They twist, they tangle, they lift. You can feel the pressure build in your ears as the air stacks upward like rising cake batter, one soft layer on top of another. And above it all, the clouds begin to climb. These are no ordinary clouds. These are cumulonimbus towers, the thunderheads of the tropics. They form quickly and rise dramatically, sometimes reaching the tropopause, the boundary between Earth's weather and the stratosphere, nearly 12 to 14 kilometers high. Inside, the rising air meets frigid temperatures. Water condenses, ice crystals form, and as millions of particles swirl, they begin to separate electrically, like balloons rubbed against wool sweaters. That's how the cloud begins to charge. The top becomes positively charged, the bottom negatively. And in between, a tension builds, a quiet, invisible pull, like the pause before a violin string is plucked. What breaks the tension is lightning, but not always in a straight bolt. Sometimes the lightning dances around inside the cloud, sparking horizontally. Sometimes it zips from cloud to cloud, and only occasionally does it leap to the ground. You might imagine this storm is violent, but it rarely is. Instead, it's rhythmic, like breath, like the tide. Every evening, just as the heat and humidity reach their tipping point, the Catatumbo convergence triggers another luminous outburst. It's no surprise that ancient peoples saw it as divine. The local Wayuu and Anu people once believed these nightly sparks were the souls of ancestors speaking through the sky. Spanish sailors navigating the coast saw the storm as both guide and guardian. They called it Farol del Catatumbo, the Catatumbo lantern. And even today, if you were to float just above the lake at sunset, you would feel it coming. The air gets thicker. Still, a faint electricity tickles the hair on your arms. The clouds above shift slowly, then faster. Then, in one quiet second, a flash. The first strike is often small, more like a camera flash than a forked bolt. Then another, and another. Like a heartbeat, the tempo picks up. Before long, you're surrounded. The clouds flicker not just once, but dozens of times a minute. The lightning comes in bursts, often clustered in the same towering clouds, echoing silently in the humid dark. It feels eternal, but it's built anew each night from heat, humidity, and wind stirred together by the Catatumbo's breath. And maybe that's what makes it so special. It's not just lightning, it's a ritual. The river feeds the air feeds the clouds return the favor with firelight. A perfect cycle, an ancient loop, the earth speaking to itself. and you softly, curiously listening in. Now twilight has slipped into night. You're drifting above the lake, where moonlight mingles with flashes from within the clouds. But there's a pattern to it, a rhythm like breathwork in the sky. And if you watch closely, you'll notice something magical. The storm begins right on cue. This is the hour when the heat of the day finally gives up its grip and the atmosphere exhales. The sun has vanished, leaving only the quiet tension of energy looking for a place to go. That's when the lightning begins in earnest, just after dark, almost as if the storm is waiting politely for night to fall. You might ask yourself, how does the setting sun cause lightning? Well, it's all about temperature gradients, the difference between hot and cool day and night. During the day, the land and water heat up unevenly. The lake stores warmth like a thermal battery, while the surrounding mountains cool off much faster. As darkness falls, the warm air over the lake continues to rise. Cooler air from the mountains rushes in to take its place. And when these opposing air masses meet, especially with all that tropical moisture and dust swirling about, instability forms. Think of it like shaking a snow globe. The particles rise, the water churns. Then gravity and energy do the rest. Now something beautiful happens. Convective updrafts, columns of air that surge upward, push moisture into the highest reaches of the atmosphere. As this moisture rises, it cools. Tiny droplets become ice crystals, and it's these frozen specks that begin the electric ballet. Ice particles of varying sizes knock into one another, each collision stripping electrons and building charge separation. The bigger, heavier crystals fall, while the lighter ones are swept upward. This motion creates a layering of positive and negative charges within the cloud. And the more this continues, the more desperate the cloud becomes to release that tension. You begin to feel it. The atmosphere gets heavy. Still, the hair on your arms lifts ever so slightly, like the air is watching you. And then crack, a bolt of lightning laces its way through the clouds, lighting up the night in a soft burst of gold and violet. Unlike storm systems that pop up unpredictably, this one is nearly predictable by the hour. Scientists have tracked the diurnal cycle, meaning the 24-hour pattern of heat and moisture, and found that most lightning at Lake Maracaibo happens between 7 p.m. and 1 a.m. So you ask yourself, why this exact time window? Because the sun has set, but the land is still radiating the heat it gathered all day. The lake releases vapor more freely as cooler air presses down from the surrounding mountains. The ingredients are perfect. The oven is preheated. The cake rises. This is the secret behind the phrase you sometimes hear among locals. The lightning waits for dinner, and still no thunder. Have you noticed? This is what makes Catatumbo Lightning even more strange. Despite all the furious flickering above, the air around you remains hushed. That's because most of the flashes happen inside the clouds or between cloud layers too far from the ground to let sound travel efficiently. It's as if the sky has learned to whisper. The light itself can travel hundreds of kilometers, easily visible to sailors on the Caribbean or pilots in the stratosphere. But the thunder, muffled, swallowed by air. You might feel the storm before you hear it. And while that might sound eerie, it's actually calming. The absence of thunder makes this storm feel less aggressive, more ceremonial. You watch the lightning and feel almost like a guest, invited, but hushed. You may wonder, does this silent spectacle affect the creatures below? Yes, and in the most curious ways. Some birds use the flashes to navigate. Some insects synchronize their wing beats. Fishers say the storm calms certain species of fish, drawing them toward the surface. It's as if every part of the lake's ecosystem has adjusted to this nightly electrical lullaby. So now, as the clouds tower higher and the lightning pulses more quickly, you find yourself slipping into the rhythm, not startled, not tense, but attuned. You begin to see how it all fits together: the sun, the lake, the wind, the clouds, the pulse. Every bolt of lightning becomes a heartbeat. Every flicker, a signal that the world is still breathing. And somewhere deep in that glowing sky, you start to feel your own mind quiet. Thoughts slow, time softens. The storm doesn't rage, it remembers. The lightning no longer startles you, it soothes. Each flicker feels familiar now, like the gentle blinking of a distant lighthouse. But tonight, the show is far from over. Because this isn't just a burst of local weather. Tonight, the storm begins to grow. It starts with one cloud, tall, puffed like whipped cream, laced with light. Then another rises beside it, then another. Before long, they are linking arms across the lake, sharing moisture, heat, and charge. One by one, the small storms merge. This is the moment the storm changes form, from local curiosity to a sprawling lightning complex. You hover above it, the lake now blanketed by an entire fleet of storm cells, each tower glowing from within. The clouds connect like dancers in a silent waltz. Energy moves between them in graceful arcs. At this scale, lightning no longer flashes in isolation. It ripples, traveling sideways across the sky like stitches in a velvet curtain. You ask yourself, what holds these storms together? The answer lies in the lake basin's design. It's like a bowl that captures heat, funnels air, and traps the perfect conditions over a wide surface area. That bowl allows separate thunderheads to form close enough that their electrical fields interact. Like magnets drawn together, they align. Their charges build, then discharge. What begins as a flicker becomes a chain reaction. You're witnessing a mesoscale convective system, which sounds like something a weather scientist would scribble into a textbook. But to you, floating up here in the silent sky, it feels more like a living organism. The storm breathes, moves, evolves. Each lightning flash is a neuron firing, each cloud an organ working in harmony. These massive cloud systems can span hundreds of kilometers, towering so high that they bump the tropopause, the cap at the top of Earth's weather layer. And inside, the lightning takes on every shape you've ever imagined, and some you haven't. You might see sheet lightning, broad glowing flashes that light up entire cloud walls. Spider lightning, long tendrils crawling across the sky like fingers made of flame. Forked lightning, classic jagged bolts snaking toward Earth, though here they rarely touch down. Every shape has a story, every arc a mission. The clouds speak in light now. One moment you're watching a single bolt illuminate a cloud from within. The next you're watching that light travel flickering from one storm to the next, like whispers pass through a crowd. You realize the clouds are not isolated, they're connected. Just like neurons in a brain, these storm cells form a network, exchanging energy and information through lightning. One strike triggers another and another, until the entire basin becomes a single, shimmering entity. And then, something unexpected happens. From time to time, these connected storms reach a kind of climax, an intense period where the lightning frequency skyrockets. Scientists call it a burst phase. For you, it feels like the storm has decided to sing. Bolts cascade through the sky, one after another, almost faster than your eyes can follow. Have you ever seen the sky blink over and over, like a strobe, but without sound? It's disorienting and oddly mesmerizing. Like watching stars flicker behind a silk curtain or bioluminescent jellyfish pulsing beneath ocean waves. You're witnessing the peak of the storm's energy. And even though it feels eternal, you begin to wonder what happens when the charge runs out, when the clouds have nothing more to give. But for now, the dance continues. You drift slowly from one end of the lake to the other, crossing under arching tendrils of fire. The air is heavy, but not oppressive. The kind of weight you feel lying under a blanket in winter, secure, warm, and still. The sky above is still flashing, the clouds still swelling, the lightning still speaking. And as the storms stretch out their limbs and grow into something planetary, you lie back in the dark, watching light move in patterns only nature knows how to write. One more flash, one more breath, and the storm becomes the sky. The flashes continue, each one painting the sky for just a breath of a moment, before vanishing into darkness again. You begin to wonder, where does all this energy go? How can something so relentless, so powerful, just disappear? It's a quiet mystery. And the answer begins far above you. You're now drifting higher up into the thinner air above the storm. Up here, something unexpected happens. When lightning climbs rather than falls, it brushes the very edge of Earth's atmosphere, and sometimes it breaks through. Because not all lightning is downward. Some goes up into space. These are known as transient luminous events, a beautiful name for a beautiful secret. Among them are the hauntingly named sprites, elves, and blue jets, fleeting bursts of color and light that dance above the storm tops too faint and fast for the naked eye, unless you know just when and where to look. Sprites are the most well-known. They appear as glowing red tendrils shaped like jellyfish or dancing angels soaring 50 to 90 kilometers above the ground. They are not like regular lightning bolts. They don't crackle or fork. They flutter. They glow. They appear in groups often after a particularly strong cloud-to-ground strike and vanish in less than a tenth of a second. They are the auroras of storms, silent, ephemeral, otherworldly. Have you ever thought about what it means for lightning to touch space? It suggests that the storm doesn't end at the clouds, that the energy of Lake Maracaibo's lightning stretches into the heavens, brushing the very edge of our planet's breathable world. That each bolt is part of a much bigger electric dance between Earth and the cosmos. Then there are blue jets, beams of blue light that shoot upward from the tops of thunderclouds like spears made of sapphire. These jets can reach up to 50 kilometers high and travel at speeds of 100 kilometers per second. You won't always see them, but just knowing they're up there flashing silently in the upper sky adds a kind of wonder to the whole thing. Even rarer are elves' vast dim halos that form and vanish in the blink of an eye. They're not bolts or beams. They're circles rippling out like the ring from a stone thrown into water. Only the stone is a lightning bolt, and the water is the ionosphere. These upper atmospheric light shows are rarely visible from the ground with the naked eye. But satellites and astronauts report seeing them from above. The sky above Catatumbo isn't just alive below, it's alive all the way up to space. You ask yourself, what happens when energy touches the sky and doesn't come back down? Is it lost, or is it shared? Some scientists believe these events help regulate Earth's global electrical circuit. That sounds big, and it is. Earth maintains a balance of charge from pole to pole, with the ground holding a net negative charge, and the upper atmosphere a net positive one. Lightning is one of the balancing acts, discharging tension, keeping the electric seesaw from tipping too far. And Lake Maracaibo. It's one of the most faithful participants in that circuit. Night after night, it sends charge skyward, helping keep the entire Earth electrically stable. You could say it's doing its part, not in a loud, stormy way, but in a gentle, dependable rhythm, like a pulse, like breath. The lake, the clouds, the sprites, and jets, they're all part of a system far bigger than any one of them. And that system doesn't rage, it balances. Think of that the next time you see a storm. Think of the red jellyfish floating above it, the blue spears thrusting upward, the halos expanding quietly into the darkness. The storm isn't just a storm. It's a bridge between water and sky heat and cool earth and space. And you, drifting gently through this electric cathedral, are watching a miracle happen. Over and over again, without sound, without end. You're gliding lower again now, the electric sky dimming behind you. The storm is still whispering across the clouds, but something else has begun to stir beneath the surface. Beneath the waves, the trees, and the rooftops scattered like shells along the lake's edge. Because lightning, despite how ephemeral it looks in the sky, leaves fingerprints behind. Let's follow those fingerprints. What happens when lightning becomes a regular visitor, not a surprise? Here at Lake Maracaibo, people don't run from the lightning. They live with it. Whole communities have grown up in its flickering glow, just as others grow up by volcanoes, glaciers, or deserts. It's part of the scenery, part of the rhythm of life. Take the tiny village of Congo Mirador, for example, a community that literally floats on the lake's edge. The houses rest on wooden stilts, or bob gently atop the water, connected by narrow boardwalks, or tied to one another like sleepy rafts, and every night without fail they are bathed in light. Children fall asleep to the strobe, cats blink lazily at it. Elders barely look up. It's as natural as moonlight here. You ask yourself, what would it feel like to have night without darkness? In Maracaibo, true night rarely happens. The lightning is bright enough to read by flickering every couple of seconds. It's not always intense, but it's frequent. So frequent that locals rarely use flashlights or street lamps in these waterside towns. Their lighting comes from above. You float over rooftops now, noticing the subtle way this storm has shaped life here. Roofs are designed with lightning rods, yes, but also with patience. Residents know how to wait out the electric lullabies. Boats are tied loosely to sway with the water and not fight the storm's breeze. Laundry gets taken in early just in case. There's even a special name here, Relampago del Catatumbo, the Catatumbo Lightning. It's not just weather. It's a landmark, a point of identity. Something you'd mention with pride in a letter home. And it's not only the people who've adapted. You peer into the forested edges of the lake, and you'll notice something unexpected, wildlife that thrives here despite the nightly electric show. The wetlands are home to capybaras, caimans, anacondas, and howler monkeys. Birdsong still fills the mornings. Fireflies blink, perhaps trying to keep pace with the clouds above. And then something truly surprising, the lightning bugs here seem to sync their pulses, not with each other, but with the sky. It's almost poetic. Some researchers believe that nocturnal insects in Maracaibo have slowly adjusted their rhythms to coexist with the lightning. Their behavior suggests not fear, but familiarity. They blink when the clouds do, as if taking part in a silent conversation. Fishers, too, have stories. They say that certain fish rise closer to the surface when the lightning begins, drawn by its soft pulses or calmed by the vibration of distant thunder. Whether that's folklore or fact, it doesn't really matter. The point is here, the lightning is not just overhead. It's everywhere. In conversation, in behavior, in belief, and of course in legend. Local tales speak of ancient spirits who ride the clouds, their laughter sparking bolts in the night. Some say the storm is the breath of the lake itself, restless and dreaming. Others believe it's a warning, an omen of the world watching. But to most, it's something simpler. It's home. You begin to realize that the Catatumbo Lightning isn't just a meteorological oddity, it's a way of life. A quiet agreement between sky and ground, storm and soul. It's one thing to observe lightning as a traveler. It's another to live with it, greet it, ignore it, trust it. Here the storm is not feared. It is woven into every hour of every night. And as you drift past a windowsill where someone sleeps their curtains, glowing faintly with each flash, you understand something deeper. When the lightning comes every night, it stops being dramatic. It becomes ritual. The night deepens, but the lightning keeps coming, still flickering, still breathing. It no longer surprises you. It comforts you like waves lapping against a shore or wind through tall grass. But now as the hours pass and the clouds shift, a new thought begins to stir in your sleepy mind. Why here? Why does the lightning return again and again to this exact place on Earth? You might think it's random, some twist of climate, a lucky or unlucky intersection of sun and water. But no. This spot, this particular curve of northern Venezuela, is geologically and atmospherically perfect for perpetual lightning. You float higher again, looking down from above, and begin to see it. Lake Maracaibo is more than a lake. It's a basin, a bowl, a natural amphitheater built to echo the sky. Let's look at the map together. To the west, the Andes Mountains rise like sleeping giants, holding back cooler air and funneling moisture downward. To the south, dense rainforests breathe out warm, wet air laden with vapor. To the north, the Caribbean Sea presses in, offering trade winds and occasional sea breezes. And right in the center, a vast, shallow lake, the largest in South America, over 13,000 square kilometers, wide enough to feel like an ocean, but still small enough to cradle heat close to the surface. The topography is perfect. It traps humidity, it recycles heat, and it encourages air convergence, where winds from multiple directions crash gently into one another and begin to rise. And when warm air rises in a place that's also humid and also dusty and also still warm even after sunset, you get exactly what Catatumbo delivers. Every single night. You ask yourself, are there other places like this? And the answer is, not quite. There are other lightning-prone regions, places like the Democratic Republic of Congo, Indonesia, and Central Florida, but none of them match the reliability or intensity of Catatumbo. Consider this: studies have shown that this region experiences an average of 260 storm nights per year, with as many as 280 lightning strikes per hour, and in total over 1 million strikes annually. It's been called the lightning capital of the world, and in many years, it earns that title without competition. You float above the lake and imagine trying to measure something so wild, so chaotic. But scientists do. They use satellites now, like NASA's Lightning Imaging Sensor, which watches the Earth from space. They chart each flash track, each cluster, and every time they see the same glowing heart pulsing at night Maracaibo. In fact, the consistency is so legendary that mariners of old used the lightning as a navigational beacon, a kind of lighthouse in the sky. The Spanish ships crossing the Caribbean in the 1500s wrote about it. Pirates dreaded it, merchants trusted it, and even today, airline pilots flying above northern South America glance down and see the flicker, like an old friend waving up from the dark. So why here? Because the land, the lake, the wind, and the heat are in agreement. It's not just about storms, it's about balance. Every element around Lake Maracaibo seems to say, yes, let's rise, let's build, let's glow. And the clouds do. Even the earth beneath the lake contributes. There's a hidden thermal push from below, subtle tectonic activity, ancient fractures in the land that allow warm gases to seep upward. Add that to the sun-warmed water and the mountain-squeezed air, and it's like nature set the stove to simmer and never turned it off. You can almost imagine the lake itself smiling slyly, knowing its secret, as if it's been waiting all day to feed the sky. And as you look down at this strangely perfect place, this glowing bowl between mountains and sea, you begin to understand something deeper. This isn't a place that gets storms. This is a place that makes them. The sky pulses on steady as a drumbeat, and now your thoughts begin to stretch even further, beyond the lake, beyond the mountains. Because something curious is happening here, lightning is no longer just weather. It's become time. Think about it: if lightning returns nearly every night, at nearly the same hour, and in nearly the same way, doesn't it begin to function like a clock, and not just a metaphorical one? Here in the Catatumbo region, the storm has long acted as a natural timekeeper. Before watches, before calendars, before cell phones, there was the storm. Fishermen knew it was time to return home when the first clouds began to flicker. Farmers could gauge the end of the dry season by how early in the evening the flashes began. The storm told stories, it told schedules, it told secrets, and in its own electric language, it still does. You float quietly through this invisible mechanism, watching as the sky ticks and talks, not with gears or hands, but with glowing clouds and heat rising from jungle floors. It's astonishing, really, how something as chaotic as lightning, searing, blinding, seemingly random, can become something so predictable, so gentle even. You ask yourself, is there any other storm in the world that people rely on? And the answer remains only here. But this ticking sky isn't just an earthly rhythm, because every flash of lightning affects more than just the clouds it dances through. Every strike emits an invisible echo, a radio wave that travels outward, bouncing along the curve of the planet even into space. Some of these waves, called whistlers, ripple through the magnetosphere. If you could tune your ears just right, like a radio dish in the quiet, you'd hear them as descending tones. Wee-oh, a ghost song of the storm. Yes, lightning here sings in ways you can't always hear. Satellites pick it up. Astronauts have photographed it. Instruments aboard the International Space Station once recorded the Catatumbo Lightning as it crackled far below, a blue-white shimmer, visible even from orbit, flickering like a heartbeat in Venezuela's chest. What other storm gets that kind of audience? And this is where things begin to feel almost sacred. Because when a storm becomes part of the very language of the earth, when it leaves fingerprints in the upper atmosphere and melodies in magnetic fields, when it gathers communities beneath it and lights their nights, it's no longer just a weather event. It's a ritual, a signal, a song. In this way, the Catatumbo Lightning is like a campfire in the sky, lighting up not just one lakeshore, but the global scientific community, time after time. A reminder that some patterns don't have to be tamed to be trusted. And yet, for all its power, the lightning never becomes arrogant. It doesn't tear down cities. It doesn't batter villages. It doesn't roar like hurricanes or scatter ash like volcanoes. It simply arrives humbly, faithfully, over and over again. And as you float beside it tonight, you find yourself imagining a world where more things were like this: dramatic, yes, but dependable; beautiful, but grounded; wild, and yet familiar. Maybe we all need a little lightning that keeps time, a flash that says, you made it to the end of the day, a spark that whispers, you're still here. You begin to feel that inside you now. That strange warmth that comes when nature moves like clockwork, not out of obligation, but out of quiet devotion. The sky ticks once more, and so do you. The lake has grown quiet beneath you now. Not silent, never truly silent, but hushed. The wind has softened. The boats have stopped swaying. And yet the sky above is still alive, still blinking, still breathing. Tonight's storm is settling into its rhythm. And now you begin to wonder, is the lightning changing? Because if something happens night after night for centuries, doesn't it evolve? Let's follow that question. The Catatumbo Lightning is ancient. Some researchers believe it has been active in this region for hundreds, possibly thousands of years. The indigenous peoples who lived along the lake long before cities appeared spoke of it as a constant force, a celestial visitor. To them, it was not anomaly, it was ancestor. But over time, scientists began watching more closely. And in the past few decades, something odd has been happening. There have been interruptions. Short ones, yes, but interruptions nonetheless. In 2010, for instance, the lightning stopped altogether for several weeks. The lake that once glowed like a lantern at night fell into shadow. It was the longest break in nearly a century. And while the skies remained calm, the people below felt something missing. You ask yourself, what could quiet a storm that's spoken for centuries? The answer lay high above where El Niño was unfolding. During El Niño, years warmer ocean temperatures in the Pacific ripple outward across the globe, shifting air currents and rainfall. Over Venezuela, that shift can mean drier skies, and that dryness silences the lightning. Because remember, these storms are born not from rage, but from moisture and heat. Take one of those ingredients away, and the kitchen goes dark. But there's more. Climate change is beginning to affect the region's rainfall cycles, and with it comes uncertainty. Will the lightning fade in future decades? Will it surge? Will it change shape entirely? Scientists are watching. Locals are hoping. Some worry that deforestation pollution and changing water levels in Lake Maracaibo could alter the delicate balance. If the land gets too dry, or the lake too warm, or the surrounding air too disrupted, the storm could disappear or shift to another region entirely. And yet, there's something stubborn in this storm, something enduring. Even during droughts, it tries. Even when the clouds are few, it finds a way to flicker. You begin to realize this lightning isn't just made of heat and dust and air. It's made of memory. It remembers how to form, how to glow, how to arrive. It's like a well-worn path in the sky, so often traveled, it has become second nature. Even if the ground shifts, the sky still knows the steps, but still the question lingers like mist above the water. What happens if it vanishes? Would sailors lose their silent lighthouse? Would birds wander in search of the familiar flicker? Would the lake feel colder, somehow dimmer? You look out over the clouds and feel a strange tenderness. Not fear, exactly, but a quiet sense of how fragile rhythms can be. Even ancient ones, even glowing ones. But perhaps the storm has already answered. Because as you drift back down, the flashes continue. Gentle, relentless, not loud, not boastful. Just there, night after night. Like a breath that doesn't need to be told to inhale. Like a heart that never forgot how to beat. The sky stretches wide above you, now open, endless, luminous. The lightning is no longer just a flicker, no longer something you observe. It has become the very rhythm of your drifting, the background hum of thought itself. You find yourself wondering how many eyes have gazed at this same light through the centuries, and what they felt standing under this electric cathedral. Because the Catatumbo Lightning hasn't only shaped weather, it's shaped culture. Let's glide down together to the shores once more, toward the scattered towns where language and lore ripple in step with the clouds. Down here, the lightning has become mythology. To the indigenous Wayuu and Anu peoples, the nightly storms are woven into oral traditions like threads of gold. Some tell of sky spirits that watch over the land, hurling lightning not as punishment, but as protection. Others believe the light keeps evil at bay, a celestial sentinel standing guard in the dark. You ask yourself, how many generations have been rocked to sleep by this flicker? How many stories whispered by candlelight have begun with "the night the sky spoke"? Then came the colonial period, and with it, new stories. Spanish explorers wrote journals describing the eerie glow they could see from dozens of miles away. For them, the storm was both awe-inspiring and strategic. There's even a legend deeply rooted in Venezuelan pride that during a 17th century naval battle, invading ships were betrayed by the lightning. Their silhouettes were illuminated against the clouds, allowing local forces to repel them. The storm was in a sense on Venezuela's side, and so it earned a nickname, the Eternal Flash in the Sky. That name appears in poetry, in folk songs, in textbooks. It's whispered by children as they press their faces to rain-streaked windows. It's etched into national memory, like a constellation that never shifts. Today, Catatumbo Lightning even appears on Venezuela's currency, a symbol of strength, identity, and wonder. It's not just an atmospheric phenomenon. It's a national treasure. But even beyond folklore, the lightning has inspired artists, musicians, and dreamers alike. Painters from Caracas to Maracaibo have tried to capture the color of it, not quite white, not quite blue, but something in between, a light that seems to come from within the sky rather than simply pass through it. Composers have written pieces mimicking the rhythm of the storm, rapid pulses, long silences, sudden crescendos. One musician likened it to the heartbeat of the earth amplified. You ask yourself, how many moments of inspiration, how many quiet epiphanies have begun with a flash? There's even a term some locals use, relampaguer el alma, to lightening the soul. They say that when you sit beneath the Catatumbo storm, long enough, it changes something inside you. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but slowly, like being rewired by the sky, like remembering something your body already knew. And it makes sense, because we are electrical beings after all. Our hearts pulse with currents, our thoughts leap like sparks across neurons. And here, beneath this nightly miracle, it feels like those currents are syncing with something larger, something ancient and generous and quietly alive. So as you float above the lake once more, gazing down at the towns, the trees, the glimmer of stories old and new, you understand that this storm doesn't just exist here. It belongs here. It's part of the land, the people, the language, the art. It has roots just as deep as any tree. And just like any rooted thing, it grows, quietly, nightly, faithfully. The lightning is more than light. It is heritage. The lake lies still again, dark water reflecting flashes, like a mirror trying to remember the stars. You glide lower now, as if the storm is letting you come closer, pulling you beneath its wide wings. Each flicker overhead seems gentler than the last, like the storm itself is beginning to wind down, or perhaps inviting you to. But there is one more story flickering behind the clouds, because not all eyes watching the lightning belong to humans. Some are made of metal. High above the earth, floating in low-orbit satellites, keep patient watch. Their instruments are tuned not to color or shape, but to energy, the crisp, invisible signals that lightning sends across the sky and through the upper atmosphere. And when they point their sensors toward Lake Maracaibo, the message is always the same. Here it is again, still glowing, still alive. You ask yourself, what does Earth look like from space if you only saw the lightning? The answer is breathtaking. From orbit, Catatumbo glows like a pulse point, flaring steadily night after night, while other regions flash and fade. No other place on Earth sends up this kind of signature with such regularity. It's like a lantern hung in Earth's window, steady, soft, unmistakable. Satellites like NASA's Tropical Rainfall Measuring Mission, and later the geostationary lightning mapper, have documented these flashes with awe. They've helped confirm what locals have always known: this is the most persistent lightning hotspot in the world. And that gives this place scientific weight. Because by studying the Catatumbo Lightning, researchers learn more than just when or how a storm starts. They learn about climate, atmospheric chemistry, and even global warming. They watch how rising temperatures, changing rainfall, and deforestation subtly nudge the lightning's behavior. They study how this storm, so ancient, so persistent, adapts. It's as if the lightning is not just reacting to Earth's climate, but reflecting it back to us. You float higher again this time, not into the clouds, but into the patterns. You see the data streams forming arcs across the globe. You see the scientists tracing them, whispering their findings. You see models on glowing screens, the rhythm of Catatumbo, forming a baseline, a kind of electrical heartbeat for the planet. And then softly, the most astonishing discovery of all: the lightning here doesn't just illuminate the sky, it may help clean it. Yes, each bolt produces a shock wave of energy that breaks apart atmospheric molecules. In doing so, it creates ozone, a gas that helps protect us by absorbing harmful ultraviolet light from the sun. This doesn't mean the storm fixes the sky or saves it, but it contributes, just a little. A breath of fresh air born from fire. And that is the gentle paradox of Catatumbo, that something so wild could be so helpful, that something so loud could be so peaceful, that something so powerful could be so faithful. And maybe that's why we watch it. Not just because it's beautiful, or rare, or legendary, but because it reminds us that nature doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it just glows, over and over again, not asking for permission, not waiting for applause, just doing what it has always done. Arrive, shine, fade, repeat. Now the night is thick and velvet soft, stitched with flashes and stitched again. The lightning no longer startles, it soothes. You've been with it so long, followed it so far, that it feels like an old companion walking beside you in silence. But before we drift toward our closing thoughts, there's one more thread to follow. What does the future look like for a storm that never sleeps? The Catatumbo Lightning has lasted for centuries, maybe millennia. But no rhythm in nature is truly eternal, not without change, not without adaptation. And here on the shimmering shores of Lake Maracaibo, change is already arriving. Let's drift downward again into the water itself. The lake, once pristine and quiet, is now burdened by pollution and sedimentation. Decades of oil extraction runoff and rising temperatures have shifted the delicate chemistry of the water. In some places, algal blooms turn the surface green and thick, disrupting the oxygen balance below. And that matters more than you'd think, because lightning isn't just a sky story, it's a surface reaction. The water feeds the clouds with heat and humidity. When the lake changes, the sky listens. And lately the sky has been listening with concern. Some nights the lightning comes later than expected, some nights it's less frequent, and some years it seems almost uncertain, hesitating before sparking to life, as if it's holding its breath. You ask yourself, could this place ever go dark? It's not just a poetic worry. In 2010, the lightning stopped completely for 45 days. Scientists and locals alike were stunned. It was the longest silence in living memory. And while it eventually returned brighter and bolder than ever, it raised a question no one had really wanted to ask. What if the lightning chooses not to come back someday? It's a fragile idea. A place known for its endless glow, going quiet. But even in that possibility, there's beauty, because it reminds us of something we too easily forget: Nothing in nature is owed to us. The sky is not obligated to perform. The clouds do not answer to clocks. The lake does not shimmer for our cameras. It all exists in rhythm, and when that rhythm falters, it's not a failure, it's just another part of the pattern. Even silence is part of the music. But here's the hopeful part. Every time the lightning pauses, it returns. Every time the rhythm slows, it picks up again. It's almost as if the storm remembers why it came in the first place. And maybe that's the secret. Maybe Catatumbo is not just a place of persistence, but a place of resilience. The lake may warm, the winds may shift, the skies may hold their breath for a while. But the memory of lightning runs deep here, etched into water, rooted in cloud, whispered in the language of mountains. And as you drift once more above the soft, glowing basin, you feel that memory flicker inside you too. Not a fear, not a warning, just a quiet promise. That light like hope doesn't vanish. It waits, and then it returns. You drift gently now as if the storm is carrying you. There's no rush anymore. The lightning continues, but it's quieter somehow. Not in sound, but in spirit. Like a lullaby that knows it's time to end the day. But first, one final flicker of wonder. What can a storm like this teach us? Not just about science, not just the data points and waveforms and moisture maps, but about being alive. About existing inside something vast and luminous and quietly mysterious. The Catatumbo Lightning is in the end a mirror. It reflects the beauty of consistency, how something unpredictable can still be reliable, how something wild can still be trusted. It reminds you that repetition is not dullness, but rhythm. That returning again and again is a kind of grace. You ask yourself, what if you could become like the storm, not in brightness or force, but in presence? To show up each day, even in small ways, to be a flicker in someone's dark sky, to be warmth without fire, to be light without noise. The storm, after all, is not just science, it's metaphor. It's a lesson in humility. It could demand attention, and yet it doesn't. It could destroy, but it chooses not to. It simply is. And in that isness, that gentle, glowing certainty, it earns something very rare, peace. You float now above the center of the lake, watching one last pulse bloom in the sky. It's soft, pale, almost shy. It fades slowly into cloud and water, like a candle flickering down. And for a moment you feel the earth exhale. The trees are still. The birds are tucked in. The boats are rocking softly in their moorings. Even the clouds seem to sigh. There will be lightning tomorrow night. And the next, and the next. And it may not look exactly the same. It may not arrive on time, but it will come. It always finds its way back, just like you have tonight. You've walked through cloud and wind, listened to stories stitched with sparks floated through science, through folklore, through memory. You've looked into the heart of a storm and found something unexpectedly tender. And now, it's time to rest. Let the sky keep glowing. Let the lake keep whispering. Let the rhythm continue. Because even when you sleep, the storm keeps watch. And you are safe here in the glow. The lake is so quiet now, it's almost hard to believe it ever danced with light. The clouds have thinned to soft silk, and the breeze has folded into the water, like a breath returning to stillness. You're floating now in a kind of in-between, a place where sky and sleep blend, where thought turns to dreaming, where even memory slows down to listen. The last flickers above you are more suggestion than storm-faint pulses, as if the clouds are humming to themselves, winding down just as you are. The lightning no longer calls attention to itself. It simply exists gently, patiently, like a nightlight left on by the universe. Your body begins to soften into the air around you. Your thoughts drift like mist across a moonlit lake. No more questions now, just a feeling, a quiet knowing that you've walked with something timeless tonight. Something older than cities, wiser than clocks, softer than silence. Let yourself settle. Let yourself exhale. There is nothing left to do, nothing to fix, nothing to chase. Just this moment, this stillness, this glow. If you've enjoyed this journey, I'd be quietly grateful if you'd give this video a like or tap that subscribe button for more peaceful explorations with the Sleepy Scientist. It helps more than you might imagine. And before you drift off, I'd still love to know where in the world are you listening, from what time it is there. Leave a comment if you're feeling cozy enough to share. It's always a quiet joy to see this sleepy little community ripple across time zones and continents. Good night, sweet dreams.